Time is now 9 o'clock. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Ridgewood Board of Education to order. Ms. Kelly, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Brogan?
Here.
Mr. Donnie?
Here.
Mr. Kaufman?
Here.
Ms. Kwok?
Here.
And Mr. Limbo.
Here. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag,
to the flag
the United
of the
States of
United
America,
States of America,
and to the republic
for which it
it
stands,
stands, one
one
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, advance notice of this evening's meeting has been given to the Ridgewood News, the Record, excuse me, and the clerk of the Village of Ridgewood. In addition, notices have been posted in the office of the board secretary and all school businesses, buildings, excuse me. Due to the governor's executive order 104, citing the CDC recommendations for cancellation or postponements, this meeting is going to be held utilizing video conferencing. There's a public comment phone number, and we're also accepting online comments as well. Do we have any comments?
I have one written comment.
Okay.
Do we have any call-ins? I don't see.
Do you have any?
Yes, we have one caller.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do the call first. And I just please ask everybody that calls in just to make sure that they mute their audio and they identify themselves. Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. You're live with us. You're good.
Oh, hi. Wow. I can't even get the meeting up yet online, but thank you for having me. And good morning. I'd like to address, I'm sorry, this is Lori Weber, 235 South Irving Street. I'd like to talk about the points I raised in the information that I recently provided to all of you board members regarding the Infant Toddler Development Center. I know you'll be talking about that this morning. With the devastating effects of COVID-19 have come directives from the state that have greatly changed how our daycare centers, like the Infant Toddler Development Center, operate. And due to the social distancing requirements, maximum capacity in these facilities across the state has been reduced by 35 to 50%. But in reality, based on testimony to our state legislature by industry experts who represented over 75 daycare businesses, enrollment is currently down to about 13% of capacity. Meanwhile, overhead is skyrocketed with additional cleaning and sanitizing throughout the day, purchase of expensive fogging equipment and air cleaning systems, extra supplies because of the no sharing directives, and additional staff demands that serve less children because of the smaller groups and no sharing of staff from group to group. All of this has left the daycare industry in financial ruin. Well-established businesses have already used up their CARES Act funding and much, if not all, of their cash reserves, and they are running at a loss, struggling to survive, and begging the state for money. Which begs the question of whether this is the year to run our daycare center. We must preserve all of our funds for the uncertainty for our K through 12 program. They'll be facing all of those challenges, and we don't know what those costs will be. I'm greatly concerned about the Richwood Public Schools committing to our $1 million of infant toddler development center staffing when every other daycare business in New Jersey is bleeding money. To that end, my questions are, how many users does the Infant Toddler Development Center typically have, and what percentage of their maximum capacity does that represent? What capacity level must our daycare business reach to break even? What percentage of our normal capacity is left after compliance with the new social distancing restrictions? How many of our customers have committed to being ready to come back, and what percentage of our capacity does that represent? What will all the new cleaning and sanitizing requirements, additional supplies needed, PPE and sanitizing equipment due to our overhead. Until these assessments are made and these questions can be answered, I don't see how the board can commit to a tuition rate or opening the business this year at all. Unless the administration can ensure that the Infant Toddler Development Center won't take money desperately needed from our K through 12 program, it should not open this year. So my last question is, can our school administration guarantee that under the current conditions, where no other businesses are surviving and making a profit, that our Infant Toddler Development Center will, at the very least, be self-sustaining? If they cannot do that, it would be grossly irresponsible at this point to proceed with the program for this year. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much. Ms. Weber, while you were on the, and for those listening at home, we did have Mr. Enmore check, and we are streaming online. Mr. Enmore, is there any more callers, or is that the only one?
That is the only one.
Okay. Ms. Kelly, if you want to read that other comment.
It's from David Yu, 300 Brookmeyer Court. The comment is it now okay for village residents to use BOE Ridgewood Public Schools athletic fields for exercise, walking, running, etc.? I'm specifically referring to the BF middle school track, which I already see people using.
I'd just like to address the comments, okay? We are looking into the questions that the caller raised. All this two agenda items say is that we will have rates. That's all it says, okay? And I will have the answers to these questions at the meeting for the 27th. As far as the comments are concerned, I have a meeting scheduled with our facility people today after this meeting, and we plan to work on opening our fields. You know, unfortunately, BF field, we did a lot of work on the grass, and the plan all year and for the summer was that the BF field would be closed, which encompasses the track. People could run at the high school once we open that field. You know, it's unfortunate that people are cutting the locks off of our gates and entering our facilities. They're also jumping the fences on areas that we can lock, and those people don't cut the locks. So BF is a field where people have cut the locks off the gates to run on the track, but we had a project in place for rest for the BF field after some putting new topsoil and seeding this spring and through the summer. The athletic groups are aware that BF was going to be closed through the summer.
So Dr. Fishbein, is it just BF that will be closed and other fields are opening?
The only other area that would be closed is Orchard.
Okay.
And Stevens. Right?
And you're right, and Stevens. Yep.
Okay. Ms. Kelly, is that the only comments?
Yes, that's the only one.
Dr. Fishbein, if you want to do the consent items.
Yes, I'd like to present for consideration A, finance.
I would like to move the two ITDC items out of consent. I don't know, I don't have the agenda, so I don't have the exact numbers, but there are two items for ITDC. One is for tuition and one is for rent.
It's A1 and A2.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Anybody else have anything, or I'll move A finance to be approved minus A1 and A2.
A second.
We're just catching up here.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Ms. Bergen? Right.
Are we now voting on the approval for the replacement of gym floor?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's the only one
That's the
left
only
in-
thing we're approving right now?
And the bills.
Well, no, not the
no.
bills yet.
The bills are gonna be separate.
Oh, it's not on consent?
No.
No.
No, it's a separate. So it's the gym floor, correct? Gym
Correct.
three?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Donnie?
Abstain?
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Kwok?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbo?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I move approval of the lease of unused classrooms for 2020-2021 school year.
So I pulled the two items for the out of consent. So I have a few points and they
I'm
address.
trying to move it and second it so that we can discuss it.
They were already moved though.
No.
That was
they
not
weren't.
moved.
Oh,
Yeah,
they were
they're pulled out.
Are you
That's
moving,
true.
are
That's
you
true.
moving the tuition or rent?
So
I
Ms.
can
Brogan-
I was doing the lease of unused classrooms. I can do both, but my original was the approval of the lease of the unused classrooms for 2020-2021 school year.
So my comments apply to both. So can we move both together? Unless somebody wants to move them separately.
I move approval of the lease of unused classrooms for 2020 and 2021 school year and the approval of 2020-21 infant toddler development center tuition rates.
A
Is
second.
there a second?
I second. No.
Okay.
So I have a few concerns because basically the way I understand so far, we are a public school system and our main mandate is to provide K-12 education. And the daycare business is an additional enterprise business that we run. It's not our primary mandate. So from my perspective, any decisions we take should ensure that we are not taking any resources or any monies away from our K-12 programming. And especially in that building, we have our Red and Reach program. And if we are running ITDC as a business, then the business needs to run efficiently to ensure that it's either generating money for us or at least it's breaking even. And it should not take any money away from our program that we are mandated for. And I understand the need that we need to inform the parents that there will be some tuition, or what's the tuition rate going to be. But I don't understand why would we prioritize informing the non-Ridgewood daycare parents before we have informed our own K-12 parents, because we have not informed them what's going to happen in September. They are still asking a lot of questions from us, whether schools will open in September or not, what will be the format, how will everything happen. So we have not provided that information. So I don't understand why we're rushing to provide the information to the daycare business parents when they are not even all from Ridgewood. We have some parents who are not from Ridgewood. And it's my understanding that we don't give any priority or preference to Ridgewood parents. So I think we need to finalize our plans to reopen our own Red and Reach programs before we finalize the plans to open ITDC business. And based on the caller, Ms. Weber, a few minutes ago, I think I would like to pose that question again because I did not understand the answer correctly. Dr. Kupran, you mentioned that it's just opening the tuition. So do we know? So I have two questions basically. One is that do we know that we have enough space and resources at the Glen School building to run both programs, our Red and Reach program and ITDC program in terms of spacing, social distancing requirements? Do we have enough resources at that building? That's my first question. And my second question is, do we know that any COVID-19 related regulations and additional overhead that will not become a financial burden, and we won't take any monies away from our K-12 program?
All right. As I said before, well, first, it's been widely reported in the news that schools will be open in the fall unless there is some sort of increase in infection rates that would cause us to pivot to just remote learning. What that looks like is still being looked at, and we will report to the board and the community on the 27th. All right. As far as prioritizing Ridgewood parents in the infant toddler, yes, there is a prioritization, but if a section is full, all right, and a Ridgewood family comes to us for that section, we put them on a waiting list. We don't kick someone out of their childcare situation. Okay. If two parents came at the exact same time, then of course the priority would be to the Ridgewood parents. The vast majority of the people who participate in the infant toddler program are Ridgewood residents, okay? And the second largest group are Ridgewood employees. And then I believe just around 7 or 8 students or children are from outside of Ridgewood and have no other affiliation with the district except for the infant toddler program. As I said after the caller, we will have that information for you for the 27th. This just sets a rate. That's all it does.
Okay, so I'll repeat my question. So as of right now, when we are voting, do we know that we have enough space as per the current known COVID guidelines for social distancing to run both our own Red and Reach or special needs program in that building and ITDC program as per whatever number we have from spring registrations? So can we run both programs in that building? Do we have enough space there for all the students?
I believe we have enough space in our Red and Reach programs right now. As I said, we'll have the information, the exact information for you on infant toddler on the 27th.
So we don't have that today.
That's what I've said.
Right. And the second question was, do we know that all these overheads that were just mentioned, the new regulations to run daycare business, because the tuition rate and rent that I'm looking at is not substantially higher from last year. It's a slightly inflation adjusted from last year, but our expenses will be more this year. So
yeah,
have you considered those expenses, overhead expenses related to COVID, and do we know that it will not become a financial drain on our K-12 program?
Yeah, for 33 years, we have charged ourselves rent for the infant toddler room at a reasonable cost. It is our program, okay? As far as the cleaning and disinfecting, we purchased that equipment prior to being sent out of school for remote learning. So we were anticipating something like this. So, while there may be increased custodial time for the Glen School itself, it would be incremental for the infant toddler program, as that it just takes up less space than the rest of the programs.
So we were not running in any profit. Where will that incremental cost come from?
Excuse me?
We were not running in any profit. So where will that incremental cost come from?
I'm not even sure there's going to be an incremental cost right now, because we have that staffed with someone right now.
I'm talking, I think Mr. Donnie is talking about the incremental PPE costs, all these special, sanitizing. We're talking about babies here. And so these are much more onerous costs than what you would do to open K through 12. And because we are a district program, we would not qualify for any of the subsidies that would flow to a fully licensed, unfettered daycare center. So if you're, in order for us to open safely to the ITDC families, some of them who are not Ridgewood, and, can you assure us that this money will not come from K through 12, particularly for the Glen School? And what
Under
would
these
happen?
circumstances of COVID,
Mhm.
I cannot look at you and say, no, there won't be incremental costs. But I will tell you, our goal is, and always is, that program doesn't cost the district any money.
So talking about that this year, Ms. Kelly, I know on May 4th, you had said right now it was running at a $500,000 deficit.
No, it was 304 actually. I emailed you. I got your email from last night late, so.
Okay, so it was 500 at May 4th, but
No, it was 304. I'm sorry.
300 on May 4th. You said at that meeting was 500. Now you're saying, so what changed?
No, I did not. If you look at the information I sent you, it was 304 in total, unless I updated it. If I updated, it's 304 now.
No, you did. Thank you for providing that. You did email me
Yes.
this morning that it's 304, but
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what happened that it went from 500 loss.
Let me look at my thing. I thought hold on.
That, I mean, it's and also the 304,000 loss. You said it was offset by what? By ITDC. I didn't know it was running that much of a surplus. Isn't that surplus
No.
that?
You misunderstood me. Part of it, hold on. Let me look at my numbers. Part of it, we have, hold on. I don't want to misspeak here. Hold on. So we have $88,249,000 that was surplus from the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the offset.
Is that minus that 300?
It's, what do you,
That was from,
the net number is 304. So the 88 is included, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So we started at 88,249 as a surplus at the beginning of the year. Okay, so that is taken into consideration, and the net is 304 that I have. Let me look at them.
I'm still off. And then what else happened? That's only gets you to about 412 from May 4th.
Okay, so my original from April, the net was 358. The 500 you're talking about was the revenue shortfall, but if you net it against the unexpended budget plus the fund balance at the beginning of the year, my original estimate was $358,000 as a shortfall.
When you say unexpended, are you talking about from the general fund or from?
No.
Tell me.
So my original projection, which I was back from April or beginning of May, I'm sorry. I projected an unexpended budget, the expenses of $59,000.
Mm-hmm.
The revenue shortfall was the 500, which I think is what you're talking about.
Yes.
So the net was 446 that we would be in a deficit, and then I applied our surplus of 88,000 against that, and so the net was 358,000 at that time. And then I did an update after that, which I still have to finalize because we are closing.
Mm-hmm.
I have now at 304,000, and that's because we didn't spend all of our salary money that we estimated, because for infant toddler, the majority of it is hourly. So, not all of our, hourly people, either worked as many hours as they might have, or, when we finished out, in March, we only paid people their base. So if they had sometimes if they worked more hours or whatever, strictly through March when we closed, we only paid them like their base hours. So we had.
I think on May 4th, I'll have to go back and look at the minutes or this video, but
Mhm.
you mentioned something about changing how you were charging healthcare or some expenses for the.
Well, remember I had said that we're going to have to absorb the auditors, were going to write us up if we showed the deficit. So I'd
Right.
say we're going to have to absorb that deficit into the budget just for this time because of what happened.
Right,
So
but
then
we're
we'd have to.
also planning to change the way you account some of the benefits for.
So I guess, so can I, so let me explain. So how would we do that? We would have to, we wouldn't charge out the infant toddler program the full amount in order to absorb that. Does that, you know what I'm saying? In order to absorb it, because normally we would charge the whole thing out and then that revenue would go into the operating account.
So if you don't charge full amount, that still doesn't affect that 300 some number. So we are still talking about the total number is still 304 or 300.
Right. And so what I'm saying, in order to, yes. So in order to accommodate that, meaning to absorb that, I would have to not charge the infant toddler the full amount of their expenses. Does that make sense?
So this, the surpluses typically, aren't they, it's the surplus that would have been returned to the taxpayers that goes to the general fund, or you just keep?
No, it doesn't. No, you're allowed to keep, you're not, I mean, your goal is to run it, what do you call it? Flat, or with that lack of a better word. But if you're allowed to have a profit, but you can't have a continual profit. You have to use it, or you have to return it after, a certain amount of time. I forget what the regulation is. I think
You can reinvest
more than, you can't have, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
You can reinvest it into the facility that they use,
Right.
which we have done in the past. The window wall at the gym was done through the surplus from Toddler years ago.
Mhm.
I think,
So-
excuse me.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
I think what's happening is that we're discussing the infant toddler as a program, where I know Dr. Fisher I mentioned before, but these two are just basically setting the rates. I think there is a lot of questions about the infant toddler program. And I know Dr. Fisher I mentioned with Miss Kelly that a lot of these answers will be coming at their next meeting. I think rather than going in circles here, maybe even if we want to create a committee or something that we can talk that can look into this further as a program, rather than, I think we're talking about a program rather than we're talking about the actual motion that was the rates too. I don't know.
So nothing, let me just say, I'll chime in. Nothing we're doing today commits us to a situation where we're going to potentially lose money, right? So we're just basically.
So we plan on presenting on the 27th. We'll have a budget based on the numbers we know, okay? Just like I said, right now, we have a commitment of 57. 10 are saying maybe, if I'm correct. And then we have like 10 people who have made inquiries and wanted their name on a list. Yeah.
So
this
that was,
this commitment was received recently, or this commitment was received
It's-
as part of, when was this commitment received from these parents?
We sign people up in January. We start to sign people up early before COVID because they want to know they have a space for their little babies to go for child.
So that commitment is not recent after COVID. It's not a recent commitment. We don't know if they are coming back.
I think the vast majority of them came because they're sort of repeat people.
so
Right.
what happens if, because of COVID, in order to open safely, you have to abide by the 10 feet distancing requirements. I know as a district, we're not under that ordinance, so we could say as a district, we don't have to abide, although I don't think that's proper.
Well,
So what
by
happens?
district, we are required to go social distancing, okay, with everyone.
So if so let's say because the space doesn't expand, and you certainly don't want to go into the Glen School space and take space away from our K through 12 students. So can we comfortably accommodate these families with the 10-foot requirement?
That's what I said. We'll report to you on the 27th.
So I don't know if we can actually vote on this without having the full information. I would be more comfortable tabling it until we have the full picture, because I think it's unfair to the public and to the families to say, here's your tuition, and then on the 27th be presented with a very bleak picture in which we cannot actually even physically have the space for a for a program that is not our program. It's not K through 12. When I think about our program, I think of K through 12. That's our mandate. Just like
we think from age 3 to 21, because we have younger kids, younger than kindergarten, in the Glen School.
But that's not the ITDC
educational service. All I'm saying is that's what we look at. That's all.
Correct.
I'm saying.
But when I'm talking about our mandate, it is not babies. It is not what ITDC is currently servicing. And I am asking that perhaps it's premature for us to commit our resources and our time to approving these two motions that telegraphs to the public, we're ready to open and we've taken your deposit, we're ready to provide this tuition. And it would not be fair to meaning the ones in the Glen School through our district. This is also our money. So talking back to the 304,000, how does this get funneled through? It will have to come from our operating funds, right?
So because what we're going, like I said to Mr. Donnie, what will happen is instead of charging the program out completely, like the projection that I gave you was the program out completely, benefits, FICA, everything. So in order for us to show a break even, we'd have to then not charge out that budget completely.
So by not budgeting it out completely, then
means that I won't be transferring the revenue over to the operating account.
And is that from an accounting perspective something that the auditor has approved?
Well, I spoke with them and they said that if we show a deficit in the fund, we're going to get written up.
Okay, so in order to,
we're a situation we're in right now, it doesn't. That's an account.
Okay. Right. So this is also what concerns me, is that we are trying to create a mechanism that allows us to keep on investing in a program that, again, doesn't serve our.
Okay, well, this is not typical, Ms. Kwok. I understand. I mean, this is because of what happened with the COVID. So,
and that the COVID is not going away in the fall. In fact, it will become more onerous.
But I don't think we're committing to anything today other than the tuition, and that we're going to be doing it at the Glen School. So I don't know that we're going to be I don't understand the concern other than in the 27th, if we feel that it's not going to work, then we don't move forward, correct?
But what does that do to the families who have, that puts us even deeper. That creates even more for me. I think I personally feel for the parents, it's better to let them know now that there's some concerns and table it rather than posting. Once you start posting a tuition rate, then you're basically saying we're open for business.
No, I don't believe that's the case. You need to set, first of all, the deficit is a result of the COVID and also the law that was passed that we needed to maintain the staffing, correct?
Correct.
So I don't think anybody anticipated this. And so the reality is that it is because of a law that was passed that we're in that deficit. That's one. Two, you're right, Chris. This is just setting a stage. And if I'm a parent wanting to move forward and anticipate what my life will be like in the fall, I need to have some semblance that there's going to be daycare. 14 of our staff members are part of the group of 17 out of district, and then we've got 38 families, if I'm reading your stats right, which equals 44 kids that are Ridgewood residents. So I believe that in just setting the rate for tuition and setting the lease amount for the district, then we can go forward and plan. I mean, there's no guarantee of anything right now. We're being pushed and pulled by a lot of critics out there and pundits. But the reality is we need to plan and move forward on what we'll do in the fall. Everything could change in a minute. We already know that. Certainly when we closed school in March, who anticipated that we would be closed all the way through to the end of the year, or the graduation would even happen, and it did. So I think we give our staff the marching orders to provide us with those opening plans to the best of their ability in July and set the groundwork for this to move forward.
So Sheila, I totally understand what you're saying, but when you're saying that the parents need to know that there will be daycare in September, I see two conflicting information here. One is, are we saying that our daycare parents need to know what will happen in September before Red and Reach program parents need to know what will happen in September? That's my one question.
I think what Dan is saying is that July 27th, we'll get that information.
Can I finish? So we have two questions on your statement. One is you're saying that it's important for us to inform the parents what's going to happen, and we are not ready to tell what's going to happen for Red and Reach parents today. And today we want to say to the daycare parents what will happen. That's one assumption. And the second assumption here is we will know on 27th whether we will be able to open or not. So that whole argument that parents need to know today that there will be daycare in September, I don't see how these two connect. Are we saying today we are giving a signal to parents that there will be daycare in September, or are we saying it will be on 27th? So if that will be on 27th, then why do we have to set the rates today?
Well, I think what we're saying is that if we are able to open and run the infant toddler daycare program, these are going to be the rates. I don't think that's any harm in saying that if we are able to open and everything is okay and we have no restrictions, this will be the cost to the parents. I don't see how that's going to be misleading. We're saying to the parents, we don't know, we'll know more on the 27th, but if we do open, here is what we will pay. That seems like
I can budget.
I can explain that, Chris.
And just
so if we don't know the price, if we don't know our additional costs today, Dr. Fishbein said we don't know all the additional costs today. If we don't know all the additional costs, how can we set the tuition rate? It's supposed to be a profitable or
I don't think we're changing the rate. I think regardless, we're going to keep the rate the same. I don't think we're going to increase it, correct? It's just a matter of if everything goes right and we don't have any issues, this is the rate. I mean, I'm guessing if we have to cross another bridge later and say, listen, it turns out that because we need to have a few other things in place that the rate might change. Is that a possibility?
I don't think that would be if I was a parent and I signed up for a program and my rate suddenly went up to cover hundreds and thousands of dollars of extra PPE costs. I don't think I would want to bear the brunt of that.
I don't think.
I don't think it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if I was a parent and I was told that this is what it's going to be in order to ensure my kid's safety, I'm going to pay that extra fee because I like the program, and two, I want my kids to be safe. I think most parents would be pretty open-minded to a situation like that, especially listening to this meeting tonight. They're going to be aware or reading the minutes that, hey, we are concerned and that this could be an issue. But as of today, these are the rates. I don't see that as a problem.
I worry about the $304,000 deficit that is taking money away from our programming. because that is something that, now from an accounting perspective. On a separate note, Ms. Kelly and Dr. Fishbein, you spend quite a bit of time on ITDC. Do you charge back your time?
No, normally, we don't spend that much time on it at all. At all.
Yeah.
At all.
Okay.
It runs independently.
Yes.
Very, very little oversight.
And so now, because of COVID, this is, it's run at a deficit, and it is, and now we're going to have another meeting on the 27th. I just feel like this is taking time and attention from our core business. And the fact that now we have to, and I worry again that if we approve this tuition, and if we approve both items on the 27th, if the picture is bleak, and it probably may be, I can't anticipate it, then we can't commit to a program that will put us in more than a couple $100,000 in the hole, that will take money from our real school, our real children in the Glen School.
I think if that's the case, and that's what Dr. Fishbein determines for the 27th meeting, then we don't move forward. But right now, I think, Sheila, you moved the motion to approve, correct?
I did.
I think we're kind of going in circles at this point. I think we need to move past and vote on it. And if we have a majority vote or for passing it, then we need to move forward. I think we're just sort of running in circles right now.
So before we vote, I do want you to know, I do think the board should just take into consideration that we are at $304,000 at the end of this year. I don't know physically what will happen if we commit to the program, and that's what it sounds like once you put the, and then the extra cost that will happen, will it have to then be absorbed by the Glen School, by our district? Ms. Kelly, can you answer that?
So let me just say one thing. If we have to pivot to remote instruction, okay, during next year, we could be in a similar thing. I'm just being totally honest, because that's our requirement. We are slated to open in some form in September with the public health numbers right now for everyone, all right? If things go south, we have to pivot to remote learning. Like, it's 12 noon. We got to send the kids home. We got to go to remote learning. That's the situation we're in, not just at infant toddler, but in our whole program. All right. So we can never say to you, as I said in the beginning, that we can 100% guarantee that this will work out as a break even or have a surplus.
But
I'm not going to lie to you and say that. Please let me finish.
Okay.
Right? These are extenuating circumstances that we've been through. Hopefully we'll never see them again, but we're not through it. It's going to continue for some time. All right. But we've made a 33-year commitment to this program. Okay. And we have people who, for no reason of theirs or ours, because we had them sign up as we do every year in the winter, that believe this program is going to work. All right. As I said, normally Antoinette and I spend very little time on this. Okay. It runs by itself, as it should. All right. It's only recent that we're spending time on it. All right. That's it. But we're also spending time on a lot of things in great depth that we normally don't in the normal operation of the district because of COVID.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, because of COVID, this extenuating circumstances are going to go into the fall when your attention, your time should be focused on our core mandate. And why take the business risk? There's plenty of other providers that potentially could step in and run it for us without impacting our core business. We outsource our food services, we outsource our aftercare. This is another business that is it's not our core. And if should in the fall, these losses are projected, which is maybe could be Miss Kelly, I don't know, it will be off of our books. Why take the business risk? We're not in the business of taking care of babies.
And other people are running more efficiently because they were paying us more. Other companies are paying more rent than what we are paying to ourselves. So they are charging us tuition, so they are more efficient. So if others can run it more efficiently, we should outsource it and give it to somebody else to run it.
Yeah, make it a revenue issue.
I agree with Chris. It's time to vote one way or another.
Dr. Fishman.
But this has been part of our core business for 33 years.
But I don't think it should be. That's what our core business is, K through 12.
It should be run efficiently.
Relax. Dr. Fishbein, you're saying on the 27th, which is 2.5 weeks, you're going to have more answers for us. Would it help? Obviously we have members of the public, we have members of the board that have a lot of questions. Would a committee helping now, or
I think they should give us the questions. We have so many committees to open school that no, I really, please give us your questions. You know, we heard a lot from the caller, and I'm sure we wrote them down, and we will have answers.
So are we going to provide answers? Because the same caller asked some questions at the last meeting. I requested to provide answer at the next meeting. Do we have answer for the caller from last meeting about daycare regulations versus?
Yes, you know, Mr. Donnie, you know, I sent you the stuff. We follow the same handbook as regular daycare centers. It's chapter 52 from Department of Child and Family Services, I believe. That's what we've used since those regulations were in place.
Right, but Dr. Fishman, you are saying that send us the questions and we'll provide answers. And I'm saying there are callers who ask questions at the public meetings, and so far we have not provided the answers. So can you provide the answers? I'm just asking.
I just did to that question. Yep.
But there was
I do have one question. I think I agree that we should vote and make sure these are all answered. If these two setting the rates, if this does not pass today, it is my understanding that it's not that the infant toddler program is still going to continue. It's not stopping anything. And I believe that we're just setting rates for the current year. Will we just fall back on last year's rates, or?
No. If we don't have rates, we need to tell the parents that they need to find a childcare provider.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we table this then, given that we have questions from the last meeting? We have questions 17 that, that we have another meeting 17 days from now. Again, what is the hurry, especially if on the 27th, the picture suggests that perhaps we don't want to take funding and space away from Glen School? Because again, one of my big questions is, if we open the school for ITDC and we have a contract with them, and some of them are not Ridgewood residents, what happens if, because of distancing requirements, we are not able to satisfy the Glen School students? What takes priority, the contract or the district?
And I believe I answered that. It's my understanding that we do have the space for the Glen Schools programs.
But this is, you didn't actually confirm the 10-foot distancing requirements. That just came out. So I think it's a little premature, because I'm afraid that we would maybe have to take priority, because it's a contract, right? Once we sign and accept these contracted parents, we may have to, I don't know what happens to the Glen School children. Then they go on a lower schedule, and then even talking about the funding, there's been a lot of concerns about what the state funding special education picture would look like. We have to absorb about $304,000 year end. The pandemic is not going away. We are still in this very extenuating circumstances. To think that suddenly it will get different in the fall, I think it's a little premature to vote on it today. If you say that we have a meeting on the 27th, I think that we should wait till the 27th so we can have a complete picture and all the data set.
Well, I think it was first and seconded, and it needs to be voted on.
So
Right, so
I
Dr.
think
Fishbein,
it sends,
from the
I think
oversight
it sends a
perspective, the
message
board-
that we are moving forward with the planning when we set the rate for the tuition. And it allows, as Chris indicated, allows parents to begin to budget for, okay, this is what the cost will be as they prepare, hopefully, to go back to work. As you know,
Yeah, if I could
childcare
just
is
throw
a
us,
necessary part of reopening the economy.
I
So
just
let's
think that
vote.
if parents don't know what the rates are even going to be, that they're going to have a very hard time telling us whether or not they plan to come back. So it's, you know, I mean, thinking about, you know, having to arrange childcare many years ago myself, if you didn't have any rates to go off of, you couldn't say whether or not you were coming because you couldn't know whether or not you were going to be able to pay the rates if you didn't have rates. So it's like signing up,
Dr. Fishbein is saying that
committing to daycare without knowing what the
already
tuition
signed.
is, I think is very challenging for parents.
Let's
Dr.
vote.
Fishbein is saying that 57 parents have already signed for next year.
Yeah, but they may not if we don't have the rates.
So have they signed or have they not signed?
Let's vote. Okay, because I don't know about you, but I need to get to work.
That's fine. I can't vote unless I have the information. I'm surprised. How are you eager to vote without all the information?
Yeah,
Where
how
you-
can you
I have
vote?
enough information to guide me in that this is the tuition rate we will charge if the decision and all of the things are in place that we will open for parents, all right, and for the students. So right now, all we're doing is setting the rate.
And so on the 27th,
Right.
if in order to make sure that we are net neutral and not taking money from the operating funds, then what? Because I know we're just setting the tuition, but it puts us on a path of basically opening up our coffers and saying we will make sure this business runs throughout the year. And you're going to take potentially funds away and space away from our Glen School children.
But I think if that happens and if those questions aren't answered, we can address that.
Address it, meaning something we just decide on. I just feel for 17 days, again, it's a very important consideration. I think it's worth tabling and being very measured in how we do governance and how we decide. Because the worst is if we decide now, we put up the tuition rates, on the 27th, we find out because of all the extra costs, the potential for some of these families to not be able to afford the daycare. They're maybe not going back to the office anymore, as a lot of my peers are. They are opting to work from home for many, many reasons. Suddenly, we have committed our time and attention and resources to a daycare program that will take those same resources away from our students at the Glen School.
I don't think anybody wants that, and I will not support a program that takes away from our district. But I think right now, we have a motion. It was seconded. I think we have to vote. I think Mr. Donnie and Ms. Kwok, you're not going to convince anyone here to not feel the way they feel. So at this point, we're all going to keep expressing our feelings, and it literally could go all day. So I think
At least I'm not trying to convince anybody. I just want to put on record that the board has been told recently, in recent past, that once you voted, you voted. You should have asked all the questions before you voted. We were told clearly, and we asked a lot of questions today. We did not get the answers, and I see a couple of you are very eager to vote, which is fine. I just want to put that on record that we are recently told once you voted, you voted. So once you vote on something, you cannot change it back. And we were asked, all your questions should have been asked before, and that there was no pressure and there was no timeline, but you guys voted for it. And I see the same thing happening again today, that pressure is being built on us, and that if you don't do it today, we lose opportunity. And then once we vote, then we will have losses in September, and we will be told that the BOE voted on that. So I just want to put that on record, and then let's take a vote.
Okay. That was the difference of a contract
yes,
versus
it's a different
this is
situation.
establishing a tuition
So
rate.
can we change the tuition
Very
rate
different.
once we know? Can we change the tuition rate once we know that our expenses will be more?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes it a little bit different, Mr. Donnie. And I understand the concern, and I agree with both of you. I don't want a program that's going to cost money from our students. But again, I think what we're voting on today doesn't lock us into anything. There's no contracts being signed. We're just saying to the community, if we can open, this is going to be the price. And I support that.
Yeah. All right, Ms. Kelly, I believe we are ready to vote.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
No,
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Kwok,
I'm going to vote this way because I remain very concerned about taking money away from the general fund, so no.
and Mr. Limbo.
Yes, I think we're going to get a lot of answers on the 27th.
Okay, thank you.
Approval of bills.
So I checked the bills. I got to thank Joanne and Julie for walking me through the bills. It was very informative. My first time. Luckily, it was very short bills. Very informative, very interesting. But I moved that all the bills are good, and I move for them to be payment as listed.
I second.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
yes,
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Kwok,
Yes.
and Mr. Limbo.
Yes.
Okay.
Next up, do we have any announcements? I don't think we had anything this.
I just wanted to, and I know you were talking about this as I had just come on, but to really thank our high school administration and our faculty, Dr. Fishbein, and everybody that was involved in graduation. I wasn't sure it was going to happen, and it did, and it was beautiful. And I would not want to not also thank our custodial staff and Aramark. It was beautifully done and well orchestrated and very thoughtful. And I happened to be sort of locked into the parking lot as I had stopped to talk to somebody, and so I came late, and the kids were just picking up their diplomas and walking about and smiled, and it was wonderful to see them together as a class and to see how well they interacted with one another and supportive of one another as they graduated. I love the cheering for the other students as their names were called. So really congratulations on a really difficult planning process, and it was beautifully done. And once again, I think, and I've heard from a number of parents who have said thank you and to express thanks to the administration and our teachers. So congratulations, Dan, and to Tom. Please pass that along to all that were involved, Basil and Jeff and the guidance and everybody that was there. So,
I want to add, thanks to the parents and the community, because they're respectful and stayed away. So it wasn't a problem. Yep.
Yeah.
So thanks. And the high school administration deserves all the credit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mr. Donnie?
announcements.
Mr. Kaufman?
I just like to say I think Sheila's haircut looks great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ms. Kwok?
No, it's fine.
Okay. I just also want to, besides your hair does look great. Also, the graduation was awesome. And I know that Dr. Gorman has been talking, with the staff, they've been playing it for months and months and months. And it was definitely a weight off of everybody's. And it just, the smiles from those kids. And I got to see a lot of parents and friends the next day. And it was truly a community event. I think the pressure off of the parents to get a good parking spot and a good spot in the stands was off everyone's back, and I think everyone had the best seat in the house. So I thought it went really well. It was unfortunate that we couldn't have our lemonade on the front steps, but we have to make our concessions. So it was definitely an awesome experience. I think we have no committee reports, correct? I don't think we have any reports to commit. Mr. Enmore, do you still have that call on the phone?
Yes, one caller on hold.
Okay. Hello?
Hi, I know I got to mute. Okay, I'm muted.
Yep, you're with us.
Oh, hi. It's Lori Weber again, 235 South Irving Street. Just a quick comment on some of the things that were said in the course of the meeting, and I thank you for the thorough discussion. Mr. Kaufman said, and I quote, "I will not support a program that takes away from our district." I'm very happy to hear that, Mr. Kaufman. And Dr. Fishbein said the program, speaking of the ITDC, doesn't cost the school district any money. But I disagree with that because when you look at the annual audits, which show what the money and how it flows either into or out of our school funds, we have 2016, $80,739 went from the general fund to the infant toddler program. 2017, $124,963 again from the general fund to the infant toddler program, and in 2018, $20,859 from the capital projects fund to the infant toddler program. And nowhere in those audits was there an indication that any of that money was returned to those funds, which is supposed to be the case with an enterprise fund. In the 2019 audit, stopped detailing which enterprise the money was going, the transfers were going to. So although there were transfers in 2019, it was impossible to know which enterprise fund they went to. So I can't identify clearly the amount of money any longer that went into the infant toddler program. So basically, again, going back to Dr. Fishbein's comments, in the event that we do have to pivot back to remote learning, we have to consider that our buildings will close, and we will still be on the hook for $1 million in staff costs, very similar to the predicament we found ourselves in this year when we had that $500,000 deficit because we had to close the buildings. So if we have to close the buildings, we will suffer the same loss, and those families that we're so eager to serve will also be out of luck. And I wonder if they realize that with a public school, if we're ordered to close, that the daycare business will close along with it. So I think that we are very remiss to go ahead and advertise tuition rates and try to, get customers in. I don't understand why there is this rush on the part of the administration and a few board members to do this when there is so much unknown. I think it's a disservice to the users of the program. I think it's a huge disservice to the students and that go to our schools and the families whose tax dollars support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other callers?
No, that was the last call.
Okay. Ms. Kelly, is there any write-ins?
No, there's no more.
Okay. I don't think we discussed the items. Does anybody have any other business?
Mike, I was just thinking, following up on that. I do think the idea of having a committee to really look at this program is worthwhile. I think that we should really, especially given all the questions that are being raised, I think it's definitely warranted. I did not realize that all of these, years that it's been actually drawing so heavily from the general fund, and this is pre-pandemic. You're shaking your head, Ms. Kelly.
Because, Ms. Kwok, with all due respect to the caller, she's not really reading the audit properly. And I did give you guys the financials from the last 5 years. And honestly, creating a committee, I don't know, we can answer those questions. We just need to answer them. I don't know what putting committee together is. As administrators, that's really our job to review those and answer.
The oversight is the board's job. The oversight and policy setting is the board's job.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm saying oversight and setting policy is the board's job.
I understand that, and I understand that,
The
but
committee would confirm. So we have a caller, we have a resident who has taken time to research and ask some questions.
mhm.
And there is no other avenue to answer those questions because those questions are asked in public meeting. Not all of the
No,
questions.
right, but we can answer those questions.
But we have not. We are just saying that the caller
Yeah.
is not correct, but we have not answered the questions. And
I know, but we're going to do that for the next meeting. That was what Dr. Fishbein said several times.
will
Would
you
we be able
answer,
to maybe,
Questions for you to answer.
including the funds that were moved from general fund,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all.
including the fund movement that the caller just mentioned?
Yeah, I will go through the audits again. Again, I'm not saying that we never transferred money back and forth in the audit, but I have to look at the numbers. But, they have to, those monies have to go back. They can't, if they're funding it for cash flow reasons, that's one thing. But, like I said, it has to sustain itself. So I have to look at the audits.
So you don't know if that is correct. You're not saying she's wrong.
I'm not saying that the money was never transferred. I'm not saying that, but I said, yeah, she's saying the money never went back, and that's not true. I can tell you that.
That will happen this year too, right? This year you're saying when we have a loss, we'll just charge them less. So what's the harm in a committee? What's the harm in a committee that might?
what's happening right
You
now?
guys decide. I'm done.
Yeah, Mike is the president. He's put a motion in. I think, whoever.
You guys decide. You guys can decide.
What's happening is this is kind of a discussion that
Right.
would be happening, and I think
Exactly, right.
if the administration's going to be answering questions for us on the 27th, I don't know. I'm trying to look at a calendar here. I don't know if that would see any harm if maybe two members, maybe a week prior to the meeting, just touch base.
Yes.
If there's any additional questions or anything, so we can kind of meet in the middle.
So that we don't have, more questions actually on the 27th. I think that would be a great idea.
I think that would also help the administration, especially Antoinette and Dr. Fishbein getting bombarded by a lot of questions as well. I know we've been sending them a lot of questions. Maybe if come together, kind of work as one to kind of present something. Do I have two members that would want to be a part of that?
I'll volunteer.
Mr. Donnie, anybody else? Anyone?
I saw Sheila raise her hand, but I couldn't hear her.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Ms. Brogan, you would be a part too as well?
I can if it's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
And maybe, so I know we can send our questions, and if the public wants to send questions as well, and then maybe about a week before the meeting, if you guys want to convene and just kind of make sure everyone's on the same page. I think that's much easier. So at a meeting, we don't have to ask questions and go in circles. I think it'd be much easier for us.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
I think that would be much easier. All right. Anybody else have any other business? Anyone? Okay. I hereby move the Ridgewood Board of Education meeting be adjourned.
A second.
A second.
All in favor?
Sorry. Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Have a good day and have a good weekend, guys.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.